Warwick Bass Camp 2016, the last day of the event. Welcome, Lion Wilson, Dillinger Escape Plan. Fantastic to see you here, man.
Yeah, you too, man.
How are you doing? Let's start from the new album,
Okay.
Dissociation, right? This is the title of the new album.
Yeah.
It will comes out in October,
Yeah.
I guess. From the previous one, When I Was the Killer, was for me the most accessible album of your catalog.
Yeah.
So have you followed this path with the new album?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every Dillinger record, you know, if you take it from the very beginning, it's kind of like, you know, that small atom. And then it just, you know, big bangs.
Mm-hmm.
And everything has kind of been building on itself and kind of at times referencing itself. I think this one is the most Dillinger record we've ever done. But what I mean is it's Dillinger. You hear it, you know it's Dillinger. It still has, you know, songs that a lot of bands maybe would be. It's brave in that, yeah, we'll do some really catchy stuff that could totally, you know, that our parents even like, you know, and then that we have this stuff that's as, you know, can I curse?
Yes.
As fucked up as you can do it, you know. But it's, yeah, I don't know. It's everything you expect it to be, but it's a little bit more demented. I think it's slightly, it's got zero fucks. I mean, Dillinger is a big middle finger to everything in a lot of ways. It's the most schizophrenic thing we've ever done. It's the most, like, how did it get here? And, like, you know, when I'm listening to the demos of this stuff, I'm like, whew, like, I don't even know, like, do I even like this? This is so weird, you know?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, like, what the fuck, man, you know? But when it's all said and done, it's like, oh, man, I think we went into the most, like, uncomfortable areas, and you know, it wasn't safe and it was not obvious. It's not necessarily, we definitely are not more straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if in any way you thought the last one was like more focused, this one's a little bit more, you know, again, kind of schizophrenic and,
Is there any way back from the place where you are in this album? Because, you know, you are going on hiatus, right?
I'd just say we're calling it quits. Hiatus seems...
Okay, so let's clarify.
Yeah.
The Dillinger Escape Plan is done, or...
We're done, yeah. As much as... Yeah, it's... Listen, until somebody is dead, I'm never going to say never. I don't ever want to paint myself into a corner where people... Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that this is a strategy to be bigger or as a cash grab. I think it's come to its natural conclusion, or it's just going there before the ratings go down, before anybody, you know, the way I'm kind of explaining it is like, it's as if we have a terminal illness that we've induced on ourselves. Because of that, you know, I want to bucket list it. I know we have a year to get it done. So I'm going to ride that, I'm going to grab the bull by the horns and fuck it all the way to the floor. You know, we're going to go hard. But it's because I know that if you were immortal, you would treat your life totally differently. You would just be lazy and bored and safe. But when you know that you're going to die someday, and that before you die, by the time you maybe get to 50, there's certain things that your body just will not do. Even at 30, you know? If you're a woman, you're probably not going to have kids past 40. So you start to make decisions differently based on when those deadlines come. And I think that putting a deadline on it is very Dillinger. Just kind of riding it out.
Just compared the Dillinger Escape Plan to terminal illness.
Yeah, it's a self-induced terminal illness that forces us to kind of bucket list our existence. And it also allows us to kind of have like an assisted suicide, where it's like before this deteriorates to a point that embarrasses me, and I'm not saying that it ever would, I think we're more feral, and the 110% that we give in 2016 is a bigger 110% than we gave in 2006. We're more rabid, we're more like aggressive than we've ever been. We're at our best. And would only get better. I don't think that we would ever put out a bad record. I know that it just almost happens. I feel like no matter what, your favorite band sooner or later just starts to repeat itself. Before we ever go there, not that I think we would, but just in case, I'd like to just leave it here and walk away. And then again, just kind of let everybody know, on this date, we're gonna take that lethal dose. It's gonna be done. And I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna leave a good looking corpse.
That's right.
I'm not gonna wait until I'm skinny and depleted and you don't even recognize me anymore. That's not Dillinger. And it's also not Dillinger to play it safe. And it's become, at least for us, it's become something I kind of count on. You know, I never thought when I joined that I would ever pay a single bill playing music that sounded like this. And at this point I've been able to, you know, pay most of my bills and, you know, have a relatively cool life. But it's starting to feel safe. I can count on it. And that just feels so un-Dillinger, you know? And it's just like, I mean, I know it's the dumbest.
You just need to risk.
It's just, I mean, because Dillinger is more than the music. It's, again, it's the middle finger. It's an attitude. It's a feeling. And when it stops to feel like that for us, I think it's a good time to, you know, at least step away and be objective about it. I'm never going to say never.
Get some distance.
But yeah, we need perspective. And we don't have it right now. I'm too in it. And I think everybody has, you know, we all have different reasons. And I'm not, you know, admittedly, I'm not the one who said, abort. That was not my decision. But I respect the people who make that decision. And I can't, if even one person doesn't want to do it, we're done. That's it. You know, it doesn't make sense. You know, and at least at this point. We've replaced members so many times. The way it is right now, I don't ever want to replace anybody else. I can't imagine doing it, you know, at least the core four of us, you know, Billy, Ben, Greg, and I don't want to imagine it without any of those guys being 110% into it.
It would be weird.
It would be weird, you know, and I can't, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel right. So, you know, maybe we'll come back at some point. I don't ever want to say never. But my inner Fugazi fan, my inner Black Flag fan, is just like, nah man, when it's done, it's done. And even if I don't feel like it's done, it's going to be done by the time we get there. And everybody has a different, you know, the pie chart for each of us is different ratios of why. You know, it's not my choice completely, but I embrace it because I have a 20-month-old. I don't want to be a shitty dad. You know, I don't ever want to be in a, you know, I don't ever want her to grow up and be like, where were you? Or any of that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to keep doing music, but I want some time to
Be with family.
I want to be Clark Kent for a minute. Because Superman doesn't make any sense without Clark Kent.
Great metaphor.
If I'm always Superman, it's boring. And if I'm always Clark Kent, I'm gonna get itchy. I'm gonna be home for whatever, hang out with my kid. I'm gonna be like,
We'll be hungry for
oh fuck, man, I gotta get on the road. So yeah, I'm letting that stuff cook. And I have in the next 12 months, I'm probably gonna have 3 full lengths with different bands. It's really heavy, aggressive music. I'm excited, you know, and I'll talk about all that at some point when it's ready.
With Mercury, for example.
What's that?
Mercury?
No, that's not me. But no, not them. But I mean, I would love to get that call too. But yeah, I mean, the reason why I got into that is I hope I'm not pulling anybody's file, but the bass player got some really tragic news on tour and had to go home. And a friend of mine was the tour manager and just was like, yo, this dude's got to go home, and you're one of the only people I know personally that can learn this stuff in a day. You know, so I'm going to buy you a bus ticket, and I'm going to pay you this to do this tour, and you're going to come and, you know, you have to bail us out.
So you're not living music for 2 years or something.
What's that?
You will make music. You will,
Oh,
you
yeah.
will play.
I have a record coming out on Relapse, sometime next spring or summer. I was just in Oslo working on some music with some, I won't.
It's a mystery.
For now,
Secret.
it's not a secret. It's just not time to.
Okay.
But I'm really excited. I've never been busier. I've never been more active. Again, it's like I have a kid. I've never been more busy. Everybody's like, oh, you're gonna slow down. I'm like, no, dude. You want to get something done? Ask a busy person to do it, and that's.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not stopping. And again, this is not me hitting the abort button, but it definitely allows me to have some time to develop some other things. And I mean, again, I've been the Dillinger dude for 17 years now or something, and I want to go home and get a mentor and work on some other stuff. I have a lot more to say than just that.
But let's get back for a minute to Dissociation.
Yeah.
Because when you were writing and recording this stuff,
Yeah.
you knew that it will be the last albums, and you knew that it will be the opus magnum of
I
Dillinger.
don't, yes and no. I think at that point it was still sort of, it was just a lot of talk,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of even like, I never had a conversation with Ben about it while we were recording, but Greg and I would be like, so I had this conversation with Ben, and this is what we, the end of the conversation went kind of like this, and I was like, oh. He's like, well, how do you feel about that? I'm like, okay. Okay, I don't know.
Like it was nothing special.
It was just kind of like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of almost like, there was part of me that's like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this record done. Is this just kind of a reaction to the way that this writing and recording process is going? You would never, I mean, the way that we did this record and the way it all came together was really complicated and stressful. One example is I was tracking my parts from 9 p.m. until 9 a.m. in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Who would do that? And I won't get into the reasons why, but it was crazy. You go a little.
As you said, it's a Dillinger way of.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, is that the normal way? Well, then let's just make it as difficult as you can possibly make it and see what happens. Let's be uncomfortable. Let's make ourselves uncomfortable because we come up with the best stuff and it's the most honest in a way. So yeah, there was this kind of rumor that this would be the end, but it was kind of like, well, let's see how we feel when we're done. And really, up until even like a month ago, it was kind of like, are we really doing this? And then people start doing interviews. We start booking shows. My friends who are promoters in New York and Philadelphia start to call me. So is this really the end? Because your booking agent is saying that this is how this tour is going to be announced. I'm like, I guess so. Cool.
Just like that.
Yeah, it's really very, this gets into the, it's very dissociated. Even when I record my parts, the last 2 or 3 records, I would just get a demo of drums and guitar in the Dropbox or something. And I'd sit there and I'd put it into my, DAW, write my parts, and then just show up in the studio, do my thing. Everybody would hear it for the first time, like, oh, that's cool. There wasn't a lot of like feedback. Let me send this to you and get your opinion. And I didn't know what Greg was going to do either.
So it was every time it was a surprise for all of you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, I would get the drums and the, and everything.
Yeah, but haven't heard the vocals.
I didn't hear the vocals, and nobody ever heard the bass.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, Greg and I really play off each other quite a bit. I kind of try to give him a pitch he can hit, and I hear like, oh, he's following. He's kind of connecting with me the way I connect with the drums or something. I hear little melodic things or phrasings, and I'm like, oh, okay, he caught that. And that was like my little Easter egg for him that he found. And so yeah, but it's all like, I mean, the communication in our band is like just bizarre. We all get along great. Like I love all of them, but I think everybody would put a bullet in each other as fast as they would take one for them. It's just, I mean, being in a band is complicated. I constantly say,
That's right.
you don't get paid for the hour you're on stage. You get paid for the 23 it took you to get there. You get paid for all the bullshit you put up with. You get paid for all the stuff you miss at home. You get paid for the arguments you have because you're not there and people miss you and wish you were there or need your help, you know, whatever. The hour on stage is a gift. I'll pay you all for that. But, yeah.
You know, the Dillinger Escape Plan music is really complex and difficult, as you said before. So I wonder, don't you want to play something easy sometime? Just, you know, grab the bass with some band and
but
jam something.
It's funny because, say for example, like a song like One of Us is the Killer. When we play that live, that's the hardest song for me to play.
Really?
Because my brain is like, my processor is going so fast that, you know, it's almost like when I've heard people talk about, you know, when their kids are crying, you put on a vacuum cleaner and it kind of calms them down. Yeah. And Dillinger, it's like, I have to play music that is as fast as my brain is going so that my brain kind of settles. It's like ADHD medicine or something. So when I play One of Us is the Killer, I'm so, you know, my vibratory level is so high that in order for me to like, and play just a slow, sustained whole note is really hard. And in some sense, you know, everything we're doing just becomes so natural. I'm so tuned, you know, to the Dillinger tuning fork that playing simple stuff is hard. Playing slow, you know, the Mirror stuff. When I went on that tour and I was like, wait, this happens an even number of times? I play this 16 bars of just that? That trips me out, man. That was the hardest part about it. Learning all this shit, like, okay, that's easy.
You're used to all this crazy
I'm used
stuff.
to so much crazy that it's hard for me to pull back. So again, that's something I need to go home and work on. You know,
that is crazy. That is the Dillinger way of working.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't force myself to be this way. This is the way.
What you want to say is you can't play the easy stuff.
I mean, I can, but I'm just really good at. You know, I've got enough RAM up here to handle Dillinger. Most people can't remember it. Most people are like, what the? And I see the, you know, it's like some people would look at a, you know, Giant Steps chart. They'd be like, what the? Who? And then other people would look at it and be like, okay, it's one bar of B flat, and then it's a couple of, you know, G, whatever. They can map it out in a different way, and they see the way to simplify it, or simplify it enough for them to grasp it. And I don't know if you want to say I'm blessed or just educated enough to hear Dillinger that way. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't do it, and I know that I could work into it, but it's not natural for me to play simple, you know? And there again, like, no music is simple. The stuff that I, you know, when I listen to Tower of Power, yeah, dude, what is hip? You just, but like, it's not, that's hard, you know? Michael Anthony, you know, Run Into the Devil, bum, 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 woo, bum, 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 bum. It's hard to be humble enough to play one note. So it's all just a different kind of hard. I'm looking forward to playing simple stuff, of course, but maybe it's like when I get older, when my metabolism slows down a little bit, there's enough dudes out there who do that well. And I don't know, I like tricky and complicated and clever. It's not necessarily about it being complicated, I just like clever. So, and clever can be simple. Yeah, at times it's very clever, you know? So,
I was wondering, you know, because the Dillinger Escape Plan, as you said before, will be over soon. And you said,
peace out.
And you said about your secret projects that are in the making. So there is a musical life for you after the Dillinger Escape Plan project. But tell me,
Well, I'll give the names. One of them is called John Frum, and the other one is called Azusa.
Okay, because
I'll leave those there.
I was wondering about Starkweather and Frodo's.
Okay, yeah.
Are they alive or?
Starkweather is still alive, but again, I just kind of, I'm just a small piece of their overall history. The Starkweather thing was like, you know, around the same time the Dillinger thing started, I was a big Starkweather fan. I met Rennie, the singer, and we just started talking, and it sounded like they were trying to, start playing shows again. But the guitar player, Todd, and the original bass player, Michelle, were married, and then separated, so they needed a bass player. And I was just kind of like, oh man. And I mean, it was just a real casual, like, so we've got some shows, you want to play? And I was like, yeah man, I'd be honored. So that's how that started. And then it just kind of went to its natural conclusion. I played a record with them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get really busy with Dillinger. There was some other stuff going on that, it was just kind of maybe not a good situation for me. My relationship with certain people at certain times was kind of toxic. And I was like, man, you're the band. If in any way I'm not, gelling here, then let me politely bow out and stay friends. And I'd rather maintain my fandom than kind of ruin it for me, And I still really love him, and Rennie and I are still like super tight. I mean, he's truly one of the greatest, coolest, most outgoing and earnest people I've ever met. And we have a lot of interesting sort of childhood trauma, that is like, oh man, I have very few peers that I can relate to like this. And it's really awesome that you and I don't even have to talk about it, but I know that you and I share something in our past that, is just unique and challenging. Frodis, it was, to be totally frank and honest, I was never really a Frodis fan. But Shelby and Jason, huge fans of them as people, and a lot of what I do is kind of rooted in that. A lot of the music that I'm doing is, it's kind of more about the people I'm making with at this point in my life. I'm not necessarily about achievement. I'm not about numbers. I'm not about sales. I'm not about
to have fun with the.
Yeah, it's about fulfillment, man. I want to feel good about this, and I want to make sure that I'm, I don't want Dillinger fans to sit at home and transcribe my bass lines. I mean, of course, that would be an honor, and yes, there's information in there. But what I'd really rather you do is like, go out and go travel to some faraway place that is maybe not safe or something. Go out and break a heart, have your heart broken, maybe get arrested. Take some sandpaper to your soul and make some music about that. It's not about the fucking notes you're playing, it's about the fucking grit that you put into it. It's not about the car you're driving, it's about what octane fuel you're putting in there. And so doing the Frodis stuff is like, I just really want to make music with these people. And I really enjoyed it. And it was cool to play a couple shows with them. We did that, 7-inch together, wrote like 2 or 3 songs. I was like, okay, we're done. I was just hanging out with Jason 3 weeks ago and stayed at his house, and, it's kind of just, I'm glad that we have that in our history and that we can develop more of a friendship and have that, to lean back on or something and just say we did it. But for me, it's done where it is. And if they were to continue, I would be like, oh, call somebody else now. Not, no disrespect. I just think it's somebody else's turn. So.
Okay. About the 2 new projects you mentioned before, we said that there's a secret right now.
What? Yeah.
But is there anything you can say about it?
Well, the John Frum is, it's kind of it's death metal, but it's not techie, or at least it's one of the main sort of things in the Constitution that we've written for ourselves is we need improvisational elements. I don't want to jam necessarily, and I respect bands that, a lot of progressive bands, they get up there and they play the same solo every night, and kids are like, yeah, man, I'm waiting for it. But that bores me, and maybe this is the inner hippie in me coming out, but I would much rather go see a Fish or a Grateful Dead who just jump off the cliff, and maybe there's no net, maybe they fall flat on their face sometimes, but it was different, and it was beautiful, and you know, maybe somebody would sit there and
only one time.
It only happened once, you know, because you hear this solo and you're like, damn, that was so perfect, you know. Whereas with John Frum, the attitude is like, okay, I want you to, you know, we need a guitar solo here, so play something that sounds like two planets colliding, and it just, you know, just fucking, you know, you could never duplicate it. And it just gives you this feeling, you're just like, God, this is maddening. What the fuck did you just play? You know, I don't know. And, you know, because the guitar player plays with Zorn. He's like that guy. He's like a real free player. He shreds his fucking guitar. But it's not in this, it transcribed, fuck that shit. You know, I'm over it. Dillinger has taken that to the as far as it can go. I'm over it. And I am really comfortable just being, you know, playing stuff that I rehearsed. So they're throwing me into the deep end. The drummer and the guitar player that I'm playing with are way more comfortable in like an improvisational world than I am. So it's cool. I'm pushing myself into like a really uncomfortable place. And I want people to come to the shows and see something new every night. And there's also another element to that. This is the part that I'm kind of working out, and why it's taking so long is Dillinger did a couple Halloween shows, and I remember like kind of wearing a mask or something and being like, whoa, this feels really cool. There's like kind of they're not watching me. There's this kind of thing between us.
But you are someone else.
Yeah, it was this kind of like, I'm already kind of an alter ego on stage.
So it's another mystery.
It was just this other level, and I'm not trying to make it anonymous, but I look at a band like, say, the Spell Omega, you know, and I'm like, I think that's really fucking cool. And I look at Portal, and I'm like, fuck, that's cool. You know, like that's like some old Genesis shit. And I look at, you know, anything from, you know, not necessarily a fan of it, but like, you know, a Slipknot or a Ghost or something like that. I'm like, that is something that I've never done. And again, I'm going to push myself into like an uncomfortable place. Part of it is also like, I've been to Burning Man like 5 or 6 times, and I just see all these alter egos and the way these people kind of, they're themselves, but they're not themselves. And it's not a costume. It's more like armor. And they're going hunting or something. There's this thing that they're like challenging about themselves. And I was like, wow, that's beautiful. It's just this other form of expression. I'm an art school dropout. So I have a lot more than just music that I want to express, you know? And I look at like an Arthur Brown or a Sun Ra, or, you know, these things that kind of take it to this almost spiritual level. And I'm really interested in exploring that space. Watain, you know, all this. I mean, there's dozens of bands that do it, and Guar, you know, who have like such a sense of humor. I really love that they don't take themselves so seriously, and so much metal takes itself way too fucking seriously. I don't want that either. I want people to have fun, you know? I want people to show up to the shows like a Rocky Horror Picture Show, wearing their own shit. You know, I have big ideas for this. So that part of it is kind of, again, what I'm sort of working out. And so that's coming. And the other one is, when it comes out, I'm working with a band that I've always respected that has a completely different, again, it's on the spiritual level, but it's something that I typically wouldn't necessarily think I'd associate with or click with. Okay. And again, it's kind of like a challenging, like, you know, almost like to kind of at least pull one cat out of the bag or something. It's like a Christian thing.
That's interesting.
When I started talking to these guys, I'm like, man, you're gonna think I'm Satan incarnate. I'm not coming from where you're coming from. But like, I respect, you know, the merciful fates, and I respect the 16 horsepower in the woven hand, and, you know, and I respect what you've done too. And I think that in some ways, as you know, in some way, I'm at this end and you're at this end, but we're like about as close as you can get, you know, in some ways, without being similar. And you know, the stuff that we started making and the way that we connected and clicked, I was like, oh man, it just feels healthy. Again, it's about the people I'm making it with, and just being like, man, I want to make music with you guys, because I just feel this energy, you know? So yeah, I don't know, but it's like fucking thrashy as fuck, you know, and it's hard, you know, I'm playing stuff that I'm not used to playing, and Dillinger, I know when Ben plays this chord, I play this harmony, and these guys are like really pushing the harmonic spectrum out there, and I'm like, well, I would typically play this, and they're like, try this. I just tracked like 5 songs with them last week, and I was like, really, you want me to hit that? And they're like, just try it, and I hit it, I'm like, whoa, dude, how'd you know that would work? And it makes no logical sense. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I don't know what to say here. So, yeah.
Good music isn't necessarily about logic.
No.
Let's take a back for a second to your past, to your beginnings.
Okay.
When did you start to play bass?
Why or when?
Why? When on the guitar, drums, or trumpet, or?
Okay. Well, I wanted to play other things. Growing up, I was just talking about this sort of. I grew up in the age of like MTV, and I remember watching certain videos and just something clicking. I've always been creative and always been into artistic endeavors, but I remember seeing videos on MTV and just being like, man, I love music and I want to play music and I feel like that's calling me. But there's this other thing that admittedly is like, I want to influence people. I kind of want to be a rock star. I know that sounds kind of egotistical, but there was something where I was like, honestly, that's something that...
The rock stars is something that inspires people, so...
Right, for lack of a better term, I don't have a better way of expressing it, but I want to get up in front of people, I want to have that power, I don't want to have to talk. I want to just carry a big stick, and make my point that way. And so that kind of just snowballs from age 7. At around age 11, I go to, I don't know if you have like an Outward Bound, you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of like a nature camp.
Okay.
And I go backpacking, caving, canoeing, rock climbing, all this stuff. I go out in the woods for a couple weeks at a time. And one of the sort of mentor guides and I clicked about music, and I was like, man, I love Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faith No More, Suicidal Tendencies, Living Colour, Primus, Led Zeppelin, all this, just talking about music. And I was like, yeah, I think I want to play the drums. And, other things like, well, my parents are divorced. So the idea of bringing a drum set back and forth between their houses was just, it didn't make any sense. It was too much. And this dude, I kind of idolized him in a way, and maybe even as like a male role model, sort of needed that in my life at that age, that kind of puberty time. And I just kind of was like, okay. And what he said to me was, he's like, yeah, man, all those bands have great drummers, but I'm a bass player. And I like all those bands because they have cool bass players. I was like, oh, wow. I never thought about that. I never really heard the bass like that. So I kind of idolized him. And, in the same way, when I went to art school, a lot of my teachers were like, oh, you can draw, you should go into illustration, or you can, you have a good eye, maybe you want to be a photographer. And I went to those departments, and I just looked at the teachers and the students in those departments, and I was like, yeah, I love to draw and everything, but you're a square. I don't relate to you as a person at all. And I went to the woodworking department. I never touched a piece of wood in my life, but I met the teachers, and I was like, I want to grow up to be you. I can relate to your vibe. And I think that bass playing was in a similar way.
Right on.
So I just kind of was like, I think, again, like I looked at the, not to say I'm as flamboyant as like a Les Claypool or a Flea or anything like that, but I knew that that's actually who I'm kind of dialed into. I'm into that. And I think that was really kind of it. Maybe it was kind of selfish and maybe foolish. I think the other thing was like, at that age, a lot of my friends were playing drums and guitar. And that was kind of the more obvious choice. And like I said, I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be a rock star. I knew that if I was going to get some gigs, it was going to be because they needed a bass player. So I'm going to be the dude in the neighborhood that gets good at bass, and you're going to call me, and I'm going to play in your band.
Oh,
and that was just kind of how it snowballed. It was just kind of that was the sword that I was cutting through the bullshit with, and that was the what I was walking across the fire with. That was my way to find the truth to everything.
So do you remember your first bass guitar?
Yeah.
You still have it?
I do. And I actually I'm not sure if it's a popular book around the world, but have you ever heard of The Giving Tree? It's a Shel Silverstein.
No.
It's like a children's book.
Uh-huh.
And the gist of it is this boy, as he's growing up, has this relationship to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, he climbs on the branches, and the tree gives him an apple. And, you know, as he grows up, he falls in love, and he carves his initials and his
Mm-hmm.
lover's initials in this tree. And then he gets a little older, and he wants to build a boat. So he cuts down the tree, and the tree like offers itself to him his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
This bass was like my giving tree. It was a Fender Squire 2. The body may as well have been fucking plywood. But the neck is actually pretty rad. And I realized that later, you know, and that's why I put it back together recently. But for the last 15 years, I was just kind of like, oh, I need a bridge. Like, oh, I broke my tuning key. I'd take it off of this bass, and this bass gave me everything. From, you know, I put so much mojo into it, and it just gave it all right back. And luckily, you know, I've been honored to get sponsorships and cool deals with people that work at, you know, different companies, and I was able to call them and say, yo man, I need some pickups because I want to put together this bass again. Okay, dude, send me some pickups. Okay, I need a bridge. I don't even know what happened to this bridge. I've probably taken every piece off this bridge, and who knows where the fuck this shit is now. It's all rusted and corroded and something. I'm like, I need a bridge, and I need a tuning peg, and I need some strings. So I put this thing back together, and it was like a really cool labor of love. And it was around the same time that I had my daughter, so it was almost this like full circle, psychological, trippy, psychedelic thing. And it just felt really cool. So I recently put this thing back together and riff on it occasionally.
It sounds good.
It does sound good. You know, like I said, man, you know, the body is nothing special.
Oh.
And it also has
a history.
It has mojo for fucking days. And I'm telling you, man, this neck, for being some like, you know, not even a Squire 2,
Mm-hmm.
like the most BS, you know, Fender out there, I guess. And dude, this neck is smoking. It's like, I kind of cleaned it up, and I didn't even have to adjust the neck. It was like, dude, yeah, fuck, you know? And I don't necessarily like P-bass spacing. It was a P-bass, but dude,
But it works.
This bass, man, it's got something, you know? So yeah, I still have this bass. I've sold other basses that I should have never sold. But I think because this thing was such a piece of shit, I couldn't sell it. Nobody would fucking buy this thing, and that was kind of like the funniest part about it. And I'm so glad I didn't. You know?
But after this interview, the bass will be famous.
I guess, you know. Maybe, you know, I'll get buried with it, you know. When they bury, because my plan is to get buried in an 8x10 case. You know, just pad me up and just slide me right in there. And then maybe this bass will get put in there with me.
Okay, so we started this interview with illness and suicide of.
And then this is how I'm actually gonna, you know.
And we are ending this interview with Royal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
That was cool to have you here.
Yeah, man, that was fun.
Thanks.
Yeah.